Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Zone to Speak podcast. Today, we are so happy to have a truly inspiring guest with us, Cara Dixon, a remarkable ultra cyclist who has pushed the limits of endurance and determination on some of the toughest courses around the world. Cara is known for her relentless drive and incredible mental resilience, tackling grueling multi-day races that test the body and mind. From battling extreme conditions to navigating the highs and lows of ultra-distance cycling, Cara's journey is a testament to what's possible when passion meets perseverance. Today, we'll dive into her experiences, the challenges she's faced, and the triumphs that come with pushing beyond the boundaries of what most of us think is possible. Welcome to the Zone to Speak podcast. We're so excited to have you with us today. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Zone to Speak podcast. We're your hosts, Debbie
and Juliana. I see like so many people are cyclists. I feel like Bristol is a mini Girona.
It's a wetter Girona. I think it did feel like that when I went to Girona. It did have similar vibes in that just the cycling community is amazing. I feel like Girona obviously has a lot higher level of like pro cyclists, like professional cyclists. Like Bristol's a lot more casual. You've got some incredible cyclists here, especially with like adventure and ultra cyclists. There's some really good, like big people have lived here. And the community is really nice, really supportive, really friendly. And like, it's not your typical, what I've got to say, like old school cycling clubs. It's all pretty new stuff. All like, yeah, we got like an incredible, like women's just, it's not really a cycling club. It's sort of turned into a cycling club, but it's basically just a WhatsApp group, which anyone who's in Bristol who just wants to ride with local women just is part of this WhatsApp group, and you just send out a message and like somebody will say like, oh yeah, I'm free this afternoon or something. Because it's a really easy city to get out of to ride. It's if you go out like west, you can get out to like mountain bike trails within 15 minutes from the centre, which is just, there's not many cities where you can do that. Yeah. Especially in the UK, like a big city, to be able to just go out and do mountain bike trails from like the centre of town within 15 minutes is just special. And maybe that's why it attracts a lot of cyclists. I don't know. But yeah, it's definitely a good city to live. But yeah, it is a bit expensive. I think I got lucky with where I'm living now because it's just a guy who was I sort of knew through one of my cycling clubs who had, well, it's his house and I'm just a lodger.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a nice city.
Girona is getting super expensive, and there are quite a few protests going on.
Yeah.
About what, mostly?
The locals are upset, you know. I think this is happening in a lot of small towns, actually. I get everybody's side, but it's just like these small towns are living off tourism, but you also don't want crowds and you don't want prices to go up. So what do you want? But they are targeting cyclists.
Yeah, I think I remember that when I was in Girona, they did have like, I think because it was around the track, it was the last time I went to Girona. So obviously it was absolutely rammed with cyclists who were just there just for this race. And I do understand it from their point of view, like the whole Airbnb boom. And it's the same with where my mum wants to move to, basically. She works in this small little market town. But it's like a 20-minute drive for her, and she's getting to the age where she doesn't want to have to be relying on a car. Especially recently, she broke her wrist when a dog pulled her over. But like, it meant she felt really isolated, not being able to live in the town where she works. But because it's like it's on the edge of the North Yorkshire Moors, it's a really touristy town. Every like house that comes up on the market just immediately gets bought by somebody to turn it into a holiday let. And it just means that people who work these not high-paying jobs, they're just working in shops, and the cafes, the things that sort of make that town what it is, they can't afford to live there because everything just gets bought as a holiday let.
It's sad. It's like they created what that community is, and now everybody gets kind of pushed out.
So nice to meet you, Cara. I think I've seen you around Girona before. I think I've seen you at the Traca as well. I didn't race. I was going to do the 560, but it got canceled. You raced the 200?
I was down to do the 560 because that was kind of like, it felt like a really good distance for me. I really wanted to have a rematch with Cynthia, obviously, after Badlands last year. I met her a few days before the start. I think we were just at a cafe or something. And we were both really looking forward to like having that race. And obviously Lael was there as well. And I was like, this is incredible. There's like such a stacked field. And then when it got cancelled, I thought, okay, that's disappointing, but like, I'll do the 360. It's going to be completely different because the 360s raced. It's a weird distance for me, that distance. Like I can pace myself for a 100-mile race, like 160K. I can pace myself for a 500-mile race, like 800K. I can do that. But for something like 360K, it's a weird sort of, it's really intense still. Like you saw the speed, like G and Caro who won it, like the speed and like how strong they were over such a long race. I did just get an email through yesterday. I think they are doing the 560 again next year. And yeah, no, I'm going to do that. I think.
So what happened?
What are the chances? It can't get cancelled 2 years in a row.
Oh, okay.
That'd be incredibly.
It was cancelled? Is that what happened?
They had some massive storms in Girona, like the week leading up to the three, like basically the week I was there in Girona, it rained every day. And they had a lot of the 560 route there was some bits that went like over 1,400 meters or something. It went really high. And the snow line was basically you'd be riding through snow for a lot of it. So they had to change the route initially to get rid of those high bits. And then I think the weather was still just massive storms. So they kind of just ended up cancelling it because they want to postpone it another day and just keep postponing it. And they did say like anyone who had entered 560 could do either of the other races. And that was like good enough. Obviously, there are a lot of people there who are like more ultra specialists who just thought, what's the point in doing the other races and just riding around them, but they're not going to be competitive at it. But I went and thought, why not? I'll give it a go. And I enjoyed it. Like it was good. It's not something that suited me as much, but I went off way too hard. I just kind of got excited and just, it went off really hard because it was like a mixed start and it started on this big road climb out of, I can't remember, it was just a long sort of shallow road climb. So it was pretty fast. And I was just like, okay, I'm trying to move up through the field. I started kind of far back in it and made my way up into a decent group. I was in a group with like, I can't remember who else, but like Sarah Stone was in there. So I thought, okay, this is obviously a good group to be in if somebody like hers.
I'll say.
Like I've obviously managed to make my way into a decent group. And I rode with that group for a couple of hours, I think. It was hard work, but I think there was like a corner I crashed out on. I think the people whose wheel I was following missed this turning. Like it was a left turning and I think they missed it. They didn't see it coming on the route. So they missed it. I saw the turning and I took the turning, but I took the turning with like as much speed as they were carrying, not doing the turning. So I basically took this corner at like 40k an hour and just wiped out and cut my like left leg up quite badly. But I got back on into that group somehow and then just dropped my chain on the next descent. So that's actually what dropped me out of that group because then I just could not pace myself back up to that. Then I sort of rode on my own for half an hour or something before Danny Shrewsbury's group caught me. And then I rode with them for a while. And then I got like a triple puncture going through a river crossing. Basically, this entire race was not, I had such bad luck in this race. I had 2 punctures in the rear tire and 1 in the front just from basically just smacking the rim going through a river crossing too fast.
Oh, wow.
Which was just my inexperience, really. Everyone else was going on the outside. It was not a river crossing, just like a bit of a stream that crossed over a bit of a road. And people were taking like the dry line. I was just like, just get your feet wet. Just why are you doing this? Just get your feet wet. We're in a race. And I was like, well, obviously the reason they took that is because they could actually see where the obstacles were. I didn't see the obstacles. I went through and sacked it. But it took me ages to sort those punctures out as well. By the time I'd fixed that, like I was quite far back down. So I just had to spend a lot of time chasing. And I think I rode for another 2k. So that I crashed out at like 80k. And then I think I rode for another 200k after that with just like blood dripping down my legs. And
oh my goodness.
It got to the final, well, like there's a big climb about 280k in where I just I was struggling a lot. My leg was in a lot of pain and I kind of, I'd made my way back up through the field quite a bit. And I'm not quite sure where I was at that point, but I was just feeling so bad. And I was like, is it really worth it trying to race for like, I don't know, maybe a top 20 or something? And I just kind of saw an ambulance at, I think like the 3rd feed, like the last feed before the finish. And I just thought it's probably sensible to actually just get checked out here rather than injuring myself more, which I kind of did because I could not pedal for the next 2 weeks, really. I think it was just swelling because it did go down after just resting it. But it meant I had to drop out. I was supposed to be doing 7 serpents in Slovenia, and I had to drop out of that because I was injured, which was really disappointing. And then I had to drop out of the Gralloch as well, which is the one in Scotland. And it was just not amazing. And it kind of put a downer on like this first half of my season because I'd had not a great two couple of races before then as well, just bad luck not being at the level I was sort of hoping to be at the beginning of the season. I think after that, I took a bit of a break. I had like a couple of months where I didn't do any races. I went on a nice bikepacking trip with like one of my best friends. We went to Ireland and we did something like Cork and Kerry, like the West Coast. We did about 1,200k, like 1,200 kilometers in like 6 days. So it wasn't like a chill bikepacking. It was like 200k a day bikepacking.
Yeah, that's a heavy duty.
We were staying in really nice B&Bs. We were like stopping at cafes, having lunch, having dinner at like pubs. It was chill. It was last year I did a race down the west coast of Ireland, like an ultra, and I think I did about 400k a day, and I was sleeping for 3 hours a day, and I was not stopping at cafes and not stopping at B&Bs. And to go back this year with a friend and just do it chill and like enjoy the same bit of scenery. Like it's absolutely incredible. Ireland's incredible, but like the West Coast is just stunning. Like the scene is amazing.
Yeah, you see a different perspective as well because you're not really looking at all of those things when you're racing. You don't quite notice the same thing.
And also, we were only riding during the day. I did a lot of riding during the night in that race. So there's a lot of stuff you miss. And it was nice to go back with her and just chill in an evening in an Airbnb, have nice dinners and just have a fun time, which it was good. It helped me. Then when I got back and started doing some races afterwards, like end of June, sort of July time, I actually started doing a lot better. And like there was a few ultras I did. Yeah.
I think you needed a refresh there.
Yeah, that's kind of what it was. It was just, rather than stressing about all these races and not being as good or like, this is like my chance and like messing up my chance or something. And then.
Yeah, there's always some sort of a pitfall. And sometimes we just have to learn certain lessons and it sets us back a little, but only to pick us back up where we need to be. Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to look at that and it can feel like it was right there in our grasp, but something kind of slid away. But at the same time, we get the opportunity that we need.
And then it was after that, I think at the end of July, where Evoluccio like got in contact and offered support and also to go back to Badlands. And I was thinking like, why not? Like I don't know, just manifest it. I wasn't originally planning on going back because like I did so well last year. I thought to myself, there's only one way I can better how I did last year. Like there was only one possible outcome where I could improve on what I did last year. And that's a lot of pressure going into a race that big. So I kind of, in my head, I was just thinking, like, why go back? Yeah, I could do better, but I don't know.
So you had the experience at Traca, which I think a lot of people went through that. I heard so many people saying, especially because the people that were doing the 560 were ready for that distance where, usually you excel, keep going through the night. And then suddenly you have the option to not race or take the 360, which was crazy fast. And
insane. It was so fast. It was, I don't know. It's also a lot flatter as well. And the 560 had a lot of climbing. I think the 560 had over 10,000 meters of climbing.
Yeah.
And the 360 was basically at a hilly start, the hilly middle, and then like a few hills at the end. And like the rest of it was so flat. So it was like a completely different style of race. So it was a lot of group riding. And
does that lend to the speed kind of intensifying?
Oh my God, it was incredible being in a group with like Sarah Sturm and the speed they were going on the flat, on gravel. I've got some like GoPro.
Is there so much adrenaline going through your body because you're like, I can't believe I'm next to these women and I'm hanging in here and I'm pulling my own, and it must be so surreal.
I do. I have some videos, I think, which were from somebody who was like following the race, and there's the videos of me and her, and I think this is when I was bridging across with her. So we were taking turns. I was like, this is insane. Like to be doing this and be taking turns with her. And she's also a lot shorter in person than I was expecting, which makes it a lot harder for me to actually get any draft. I was like, okay, he could have done G, at least I can get a draft off G. It's a lot harder when somebody like Sarah. And then I crashed out in front of her. So in my head, it's like, well, the only time she's ever raced with me, I embarrassed myself by crashing out.
It's so funny how we all say that those types of things, but I know in those situations it feels that way too. But sometimes we just cannot avoid it.
Yeah.
You know how to ride, obviously, from how much you're riding, but you have to learn. Everybody has to learn. I'm sure she's had epic falls.
You just cannot avoid. It's not even about being, the best cyclist out there fall, crash. It happens.
I know I've had plenty of crashes and stuff. I think it was just because of the whole 560 thing and then doing the 360.
You can train in so many different areas, or just say, I'm going to go take a bike packing trip and I'm going to check out this trail over here. It's amazing that you could do that. It makes for a better training.
Just do most of my training just around here. It's
you
cheaper,
said there's so much riding to do as
there
well.
Is. Like, I live in Bristol and it's so close to Wales, which is just absolutely incredible for gravel. Just the scenery, the mountains. It's a lot quieter in Wales as well. It's probably about 45 minutes to cycle from where I live here and to get into Wales. And then yeah, it is
that's nothing on a bike.
It's nothing on a bike. I think it's like 20 something K, and it's
right.
Yeah, so it basically feels like I am kind of so close to Wales, and there is some really nice gravel. I can just go and do like an overnight or something and ride up to just the middle of nowhere and like the Brecon Beacons or something, or go even further. Or I did an ultra back in June, I think, or beginning of July. It's the one Molly Weaver runs, who again is an incredible ultra cyclist. She's doing the Trans-Pyrenees. She used to be like a professional road cyclist. Like, I can't remember which team she raced for. She used to be like an insanely good road cyclist. And then I think she had a crash, and then she sort of finally got back into cycling through ultra and like adventure racing and everything. And she's Bristol based. So she's just one of these incredible women who live in Bristol and go out and do, I don't know, Trans-Pyrenees or like the Transcontinental, or she did Atlas Mountain Race as well this year. And she's just absolutely incredible. But she ran her own race. It was in Wales. It was from like a sort of family's bike shop, which they have up in Ludlow. And it's like 620K. I think I did in 36 hours, but it's really rough terrain. It's not like smooth gravel. It's 620K with about like 15,000 meters of climbing, which is just, it's an insane amount of climbing. There's no there is a flat bit. The flat bit is the last.
A flat bit.
It's from 590. From 590K to 610K. There's a flat bit of sort of just road, just basically getting from like the last final climb to the last two awful climbs. That's the only bit of flat in the entire route. The rest of it is just like on my Wahoo, it gives you like the red gradients, like the gradient colors. There is no climb that isn't a red gradient. It's kind of like there is some good gravel on there, but I think the route's kind of meant to be quite challenging. So it's sort of a mixture of road and off-road in a weird way, where there is quite a lot of on-road. So a gravel bike is probably faster than a mountain bike. Just you can go a lot faster on the on-road climbs, but most of the off-road is a lot faster on a mountain bike. It's weirdly designed where there isn't the right bike for it. Either bike, you're going to be either just too slow on the road sections or just really uncomfortable. Like I felt like I got nerve damage in my hands after doing it because it was so rough, but it was faster on a gravel.
Did you use a mountain bike or a gravel bike?
I did on a gravel bike. I'm pretty sure it is faster on a gravel bike.
I know that Santa Cruz, and I think Trek is doing it too. A lot of companies are now making a gravel bike that's got like a front shock that it's not a lot of travel, but it's yeah. I mean, I actually rode the Stigmata, and pretty nice because it feels just as snappy as like the regular rigid fork.
There's a lot of debate on that, like, is it really gravel if you have suspension?
It's so minimal. It was still it felt like it. It honestly didn't feel like
a road handlebar on it.
I know. I just don't feel like it wasn't a straight handlebar or anything like that. I mean, they're still talking about that. I don't think that's going to take flight with like these monster bikes.
I think it just depends. Like each race is different, and some races that's going to be useful, some races aren't. I know I have a friend who rides for Canyon, and I think they have one of their bikes as a fork with suspension. I'm not sure which one it is.
You love climbing? Because I keep hearing climbing. How do you feel about climbing?
I do love climbing. Like I do so much climbing. I think last year I did about 500 kilometers worth of 1,000 meters of climbing in the year. I do a lot of climbing because I do a lot of cycling and I guess it comes with that. But I don't know. I love climbing. I'm just not a really, really fast climber. I'm a good climber. I'm not dropping the fast girls on a climb because I'm not the lightest cyclist either. So that kind of makes a difference. But I do love climbing and I will do a hilly climb easily.
Love that. I think you can endure on that. If you can handle the climbs and just stay in your rhythm and in your zone, you're good because you can always recover too.
Yeah, it just depends on the type of race. Like a shorter race, it's kind of like if you get dropped on a climb, then it's kind of so much harder to
kind of punch it a little bit more there. You got to conserve energy and use it in certain areas. I mean, I wouldn't even begin to know with those kind of punchy climbs. And
oh my God.
And these long.
It's incredible. Like just going out with some of these strong women, and I can do my bits in certain parts, and then you get to a climb, and it's like, well, I can try. I can try and sit on for as long as I can and hang on. But there's going to be a point where that's not going to work anymore. That's probably when it starts to get really steep. But I do love climbing. And I think things like ultras, it's nobody's going all out on a climb. Apart from, Badlands last year, the start, people were going all out on the climb. But this year it was a lot calmer. I was dreading the start so much. Like the bit I was dreading at the before the race was the first 10K and the last 80K. First 10K, because I remember last year it went off like any gravel race I've done. It just went off full gas. And I don't know why. I think some of the guys got really carried away and they really put it in. This is the first main climb out of Granada. And I think I had the fastest time overall from that start, just trying to stick in the fastest group. And it's incredible. I stuck with them until I dropped my chain on a really steep bit. I think I'd smacked my mech hanger, I think, when I'd unpacked, not enough to break it, but just to bend it a bit. So the limits were a bit messed up. So I had nightmares with that the whole race. But I think that was good for me because it dropped me out of that group and I meant I paced myself better. It was much calmer the start this year. It was chiller. It wasn't a big group starting. It's sort of everyone sort of split off into their own paces a lot easier, which was nice. I still tried to go relatively hard at the start I just didn't want to be on the back foot. Because I just remember with these races, I don't want to be on the back foot from the start. I prefer to go a bit too hard and then just deal with the consequences rather than not go hard enough and then just feel like I'm chasing for so long. And that was kind of my idea. It's okay, everyone else might try and do this more sensibly and try and pace themselves. If I know I can recover from this, even if I do go too hard. I know I'm not going to put myself to the red to a point where I'm not going to be able to recover. I know I can do that. So I just need to be able to push hard enough to get ahead and then just try and stay ahead, basically. But then I remember Danny and Brad, they were doing it in a pair and they obviously sort of had the same idea. So I was riding pretty hard and then Danny would come past and I know she was racing in a pair and everything, but I'm still there thinking I still don't want her to beat me. I know she's there, but I'm still racing her. Luckily with a pair, you've got twice the mechanicals to worry about. And I think Brad had a mechanical fairly early on. I don't know if it was a puncture or something. So it's the moment they went, I was okay, I can calm down a bit. I can try and pace this a bit better.
So what did you do differently? Because I know you did last year and then I read that you changed a little bit of your strategy and then you won this year and it was on the top 10 overall.
Yeah, a lot of it's just more experience. I've done a lot more of those type of ultras in the past year, of sort of 2, maybe 3 day long ultras. So not just week long ones. So ones where it is very intense, where it is no stop time. You can't stop for 3 hours to sleep or something because you're not going to be able to be competitive if you stop for 3 hours to sleep. I had more experience in that regards. I think last year as well, it was one of the first times I did that sort of ultra. So I did sleep on the first night, not for long. I slept for 40 minutes. But that
wow,
it dropped me back quite a bit behind Cynthia, just that one stop. And this was when she was ahead of me as well. So she'd overtaken me about 200k into the race, I think. So there was one woman who was way ahead of us at the start and she ended up scratching at the highest point. I think she got caught in a storm and got really cold and really wet. I can't remember her name, but she ended up scratching there. So I was never in front. I was never first, at any point in that race. I was always either second or third or then second again. And once Cynthia overtook me going through Gore, or after Gore on like the climb up to Cala Alto, and like the first night, she overtook me again on that climb. And then I kind of wasn't sure how I was racing it. It was strange last year. I was a lot less prepared. I didn't have a plan. I was kind of just going out and just going hard and trying to think about that. Like this year, I was so much more prepared. I had memorized where every single fountain was in every town I went through. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do with that knowledge. If you drop me in some random Spanish town, I could probably find a fountain like that. Because I was like, I do not want to waste time getting into a fountain and not being, getting into a town and not being able to find where the water fountain is. So I was like, so I was spending like my lunch breaks at work and in the weeks leading up to Badlands, basically just like finding them on Street View and everything. It's like, okay, so the route goes through there. So like when I get into there, I just need to turn left here and I can find the fountain. I can fill my bottles up there. And that's where that shop is. And I can do that. And it opens at this time. It closes at this time. I was like, I did so much prep for this race and I did none of that last year. Like last year, I don't know, like I struggled to find water last year. Like for some reason, I just couldn't find water. I just was really bad at it. So that's kind of what I was going for. I was like, that's going to catch me out. I do not want to be dehydrated on this. And there was only one point, I think, where I was close to really struggling with water. And that was the end of like the desert section in Garaffi. So there's like, you go through Garaffi, like the town, you do this big, awful steep climb, and then you descend into the desert again. And I think from there, for about 80k, there's not really any resupply points. You're just in the desert. And I think towards that, just before the climb out of the desert, I was like, I'm on my last bottle and I've got like a tiny bit of this last bottle and I've still got 20k to go. I should have like stuffed like an extra bottle in like a pocket or something. And then I think it's like 7k before Gore. I was going around this dirt track that they just routed us onto. And there was this little girl who'd obviously, her and her parents had set up this little sort of stall of just like cold water bottles.
Perfect time.
Oh my God. I came around this corner and she'd sort of put it on a weird side. So it was like on the blind side. So you couldn't really see it until you went round. And then I spotted out the corner of my eye as I was going quite fast. And I slammed on my brakes and she ran up to me and handed me the bottle. I was like, you need to work on your bottle handoffs, but thank you so much. And then, I mean, she seemed so happy to be able to help like that. Cause this was like, 6k and they were just handing out bottles to any of the riders who came past. I think Danny and Brad had just got bottles from them as well. Cause I caught them at that point. And it was only 6k to go, but that was still, it felt like ages because Gore felt like a sort of oasis that I'd been through there last year, but like last year I didn't stop in Gore, which was insane. But I think because the route was different last year, I'd had a resupply maybe about an hour or so before Gore. So I just went through it because I didn't need to. But this year it'd been so long since I'd had any water and it was before the long night section. So I thought, okay, I'll stop here, get some food, fill up my bottles in the fountains, cool myself down because I was absolutely boiling. So I went over to the fountains. I basically just drenched myself because I was so hot and regretted that 15 minutes later when I realized, okay, it's starting to get dark and I've just completely soaked myself and I started to feel cold just standing around. I was like, I've gone from 42 degrees in the desert to now feeling cold within like 2 hours. And I've got to now ride through the night over the highest point on the route, like 2,200 meters or something. It's like, is this a great idea? Maybe not. So I went into the shop and I got some foods and not amazing. I'm the biggest fan of small Spanish town supermarkets. They don't have the best selection of food that I like. Oh my God, trying to do it vegetarian as well is just like a bit of a nightmare. When I first did my first few ultras, I tried to do them vegan as well. And just like kudos to anyone who can do that. It's so stressful, especially if you're trying to race it. If you're riding it and you're not stressed about going to shops, you're like going to shops and you can chill. But when you're like racing it and you're sort of trying to go into a shop and get out as quickly as possible, it's too much. It's something I can't deal with. So I go, at least with vegetarian, I can sort of still do this, even if I'm just eating boring stuff. So I went into that shop and got some, I can't remember what I got, just boring food or something. I think I got an ice lolly as well, which was nice. But which I needed at that point. I needed something like that. And as I left the shop, Svenja came into the town. So she had been chasing me. So she wasn't too far behind me. She was a lot closer than I was expecting, basically. I'd been in Gore for like less than 10 minutes and I came out and she was there. I was like, okay.
Were you like, I got to get back on my bike now?
Yeah. It would stuff everything in my pockets and in my bag.
It's like, I'll eat on the bike.
I don't know how fast she's going to be indoor. She could literally just walk into the shop, grab stuff, and be gone in 5 minutes. So I was just thinking, like, I could have lost a lot of time just like faffing about in that shop or at the water fountain. So I was just like, okay, I'm going now. Which, I don't know, Gore's an amazing place. Like, the atmosphere they have for the race is incredible. It's like a party you go into there. You come into the town, people were like shouting my name. It's like, how the hell do they know my name? Obviously, we've just looked at the dots or spoken to other people. It's like, This is incredible. And then I sort of left, and there's a really nice climb out of Gore, like this road climb. And you sort of go around, and the sun was setting as well. So I had the sun setting of this really nice town. And then it started to get cool, and I was feeling so much happier that it was going to be not 40 degrees overnight, because I had struggled a lot in the heat. Like, I was impressed that I actually could somehow deal with that heat, because I've never been in temperatures that hot. So being able to actually ride through that temperature and be fine in it was like a big surprise to me.
Yeah, I guess you don't know how you're going to respond.
Oh my God, like 40, it was 42 degrees. That was the hottest it got.
That's pretty drastic to drop like that. It plays some tricks on the body, so you do have to make sure you're hydrated and eating enough. Because dropping your body temperature like that can affect you quite a lot, especially if you're just constantly pushing. Yeah,
I had to be really careful about electrolytes as well, because I knew that was what was going to get me out. Like, I could probably get enough water, but I basically took like electrolyte, like salt.
Yes,
and everything.
That's the best thing to do.
Yeah, the mixes you put in your bottles or something, you have to drink a whole bottle of water to get all those electrolytes, which you don't always want to do. Maybe you're trying to conserve your water a bit because you go along a section, or just one. I don't like when I'm really thirsty. I can't stand the thought of flavored water. When I'm really thirsty, I just want plain water. I just want water.
I know too much of these mixes. Sometimes it starts to make you kind of nauseated. Right?
So I thought, okay, I don't know exactly like how much I sweat out or anything, but it's like, this has got to be fine. Like, I'm doing this for 2 days. I probably hope, I mean, you can definitely mess up your body doing that for 2 days, but like, I thought at this point, I'm sweating quite a lot out. If I'm taking too much salts, it's not going to really matter at this point. I was like, every hour, I just have a notification on my Wahoo saying, take another salt pill. Again, this is another thing that I was so much more prepared this year, because I had planned ahead. Like, I did not do that last year. And I'd learned so much so I just basically moved everything I'd learned from last year to this year, and then just kind of got lucky and nailed it. There's so many things that could have gone wrong. I still punctured 8K from the finish. Last year I punctured 20K from the finish. So I'd improved by an extra 12K. So maybe another time I can make it to the whole end as well. I think it was a combination of luck, being really prepared, just a lot more experience. I absolutely loved it.
Especially knowing, you've done it before, and you put so much work into being prepared. But tell me a little bit about your training schedule. I know you have a full-time job and you are training 20, 30 hours a week. I mean, are you a super woman? Tell us, what are you doing?
A little bit. A little bit. Well, I kind of I work a 9 to 5, but it's kind of like, it is just 9 to 5. I don't have to do any work outside of work. Once I leave the office, it's fine. So I tend to just do a couple of hours in the morning. It's really not that structured. It's weird. It's basically done on vibes. I don't want to say that. It's depending on how I feel, I'll go out and do intervals, or I'll go out and just do a chill ride, or I'll go out and do a social ride with friends, or I'll go out and do a massive 16-hour ride at the weekend on a Saturday or something, and then do whatever. It's not structured in the sense that I have a coach or anything. I can't afford a coach or something, but it's, so I do get a lot of miles in, and I feel like that's definitely helped a lot in just, especially with ultras, being able to be on the bike for that long, day on, day out. For the fact that I've done 40,000 kilometers a year for the past 5-6 years. That's just a lot of riding, and it's just kind of what I've done for my entire adult life. It's just ride my bike.
And that's experience on the bike. You have to share about the story with your brother, with how you got back into please. I love it. So I wanted you to share it.
So as a kid, my dad was really into cycling. We lived in the countryside. It was nice. We'd do some mountain biking, and that was that. I kind of moved away a bit at school. Like senior school, I got really into rowing. Like rowing was my sport. That's what I did throughout senior school. Like up until the university, rowing was all I did. University was a weird experience where I struggled a lot with my mental health. I was that again coming through senior school, but like I think moving to university, I didn't have any friends at the start because it was like a completely different place. I was quite isolated where I was living. And yeah, my mental health took a big dive. So I didn't really do much around university sport wise. I commuted by bike, basically. That was it. And then kind of when I was starting to get better, my brother got me back into cycling. And I was quite big into rock climbing at the time, sort of. That's what I did when I was on placement. And I was doing that 3-4 times a week. And I introduced him to rock climbing and he introduced me back into cycling. I think because of that, we kind of switched and he went all into rock climbing. He does like these big mountaineering adventures and massive treks and does like big multi-pitch climbs. And I obviously went all in on cycling, like fully in on cycling, like as far into cycling as anyone can go. And it was weird that my brother gave me back into that because I remember the first ride he took me out on. I hated it. I threw up halfway through it. It was like it wasn't even 30k. It was like a 20k ride. And I remember just feeling so bad halfway through it. And then for some reason, I just ended up doing more and then doing more and more and then just like building up and building up. And then, yeah. And then COVID happened and I just did insane amounts of cycling because I had nothing else to do. During 2020, I did 53,000 kilometers, like 33,000 miles. Which
Wow.
I think it was I think it averaged about 100 miles a day, I think.
Yeah. That's why I said it was so important to tell that story because you were meant to be cycling. There's something that was calling you to the bike.
Yeah, it was a weird sort of, I didn't have much else to do because there wasn't much work I was doing. And I didn't really have a social life that year either. So I just rode my bike and I explored so much of Yorkshire and where I used to live. I'd go out and do like a 400k ride and like do the coast to coast to coast is what we call it. Yeah, I loved doing it. Like it was a good year for just riding my bikes. The weather was also really good. And I still just kind of carried on even when I got back into regular life. I just do it at the weekends or it'd be split up into like 2 rides a day, like a ride in the morning, a ride in the evening. Or when I was working part-time, I could still fit in big rides. So it's kind of just, yeah, it's been my life for like my entire adult life. This kind of just obviously moving into ultras, maybe like the natural progression.
Mm-hmm.
Just
I will say,
I do love the shorter races. I love short gravel races, but I'm less competitive at them. I think that's a lot more intensity, like strength and everything. But if it's like a 4-hour race, and they are fun, and I have been competitive at them. It just depends on luck and how I'm feeling. And they are really fun because riding round like a fast gravel course with like these incredibly strong women, it's the most fun I've ever had on a bike. When I did the Gravel Earth final last year, it was so much fun because it was the first one of those Gravel Earth races I'd done, and I knew a few of the people there, but like I met so many people there and made so many good friends just at one race like that. And then you got to do this incredible course with some really fast, like really, really fast girls. Oh my God. I just wanted to do more of it. And then the field's just gone stronger and stronger in the past year and a bit.
And it always will. It just keeps getting stronger. You keep getting amazed.
Oh my God, every single time I do one of those races, it's like there's these new people I've never heard of. And they're just like, where the hell have you come from? And
I know.
How are you so strong?
It's like part of it's like, oh my gosh, now I got to work harder. And part of it is like, I'm so amazed. This is wonderful to see so many women out here and so many strong women and the community.
The same with ultras as well. It feels like every time I do one of these ultras, there's somebody like Cynthia turns up or Svenja or something like Svenja obviously won Unbound XL this year. And I was so worried about her going into it because I've raced her like 3 or 4 times before. And every single time she's beaten me. But these have been on like 100-mile to 200-mile races. So I know she's a really, really, really strong cyclist. But she'd never done a multi-day ultra before. Like the longest race she'd ever done was Unbound XL, which was about 24 hours.
It's a different animal.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I have experience here. She doesn't. I can hopefully use that to my advantage. Like if I can use the stuff I know, I can try and just like build off that and just hopefully do better because she doesn't have that experience. I wasn't 100% sure she'd be like the closest competition. I was just like, okay, I know about her and I have raced her before. So like, she's the only one I can prepare for. It was amazing racing with her again. And it was also kind of nice to beat her and Danny, who again are just people who have beaten me every single time I've raced them. So it's kind of like, haha, you're in my world now.
They're on Badlands that you beat them? Or?
So in Badlands, I beat them, but like every other time I've raced them, they've beaten me. So it's kind of like, okay, I've tried beating you in your world, but now you've come into my world. And this is something I do because neither of them had done like a multi-day ultra before. I know you're really strong and I know you still probably know what you're doing, but there's so much you learn just doing this race. Like if Danny does another one, I think if she had done it on her own without Brad, she would have been so much closer, because the thing is, when you're doing it with the pair, you're going as slow as the slowest person. And not that like Brad's slow or anything, but everyone's going to be the slowest person at one point during that race.
Does it mean you would never try being a pair?
To give it a go. Like if I found somebody who would sort of want to do a pair, like I've got a few friends in Bristol who might be up for it, I'd love to give it a go. Like I'm not quite sure, because I've done bikepacking trips with people and that's a completely different thing.
There's a lot of compromise in there and you have to give up a lot of that control in a sense too.
Yeah. I don't know. I may do it. It's nothing I've planned yet. If I go back to Badlands, I need to think of something else to do. I'd like to go back and do something different. Maybe doing a pair would be how I'd do it next time, but it's not currently on my plan.
But what's in the plans? Are you willing to talk about?
Obviously, I've mentioned the 560, the tracker, because that's, again, going to be quite a big event if it goes ahead this year, because they put so much effort into like the marketing and like publicity around it. It's going to be a big event. It's going to have really big names there again. So that's obviously an early season. It's like May, isn't it? It's quite early in the year. And then I have a few things that I'm kind of thinking about doing depending on sponsors. I've got some meetings and stuff. I want to sort things out before I make some big plans. I just want to do different things, and going back to Badlands a third year in a row would just be a bit. I would love to, just because I love the atmosphere and the people there. And it's kind of nice going there, having people know me now. Last year I went and nobody knew who I was at the start. Like I walked through that. I think I knew Bruno and that was it. And he introduced me to some people. And I think, but then this year I went and so many people knew who I was and like wanted to say hi, or like, even if I hadn't actually met them myself, they'd like followed me on Instagram or on Strava or whatever, or just like knew me from the race last year. And it was such a strange experience going back there and feel like, okay, people actually know me and like want to talk to me and say hi. And I feel popular. And I don't know, it's such a nice community. Like even just the organizers, when I turned up like 8 a.m. something. So basically how I had to ride from the airport in Malaga to Granada again this year, because like the flight gets in at like 1 a.m. There's no trains running at that time. I don't want to hang around in Malaga for 6 hours for the first train. So I just thought I'll build up my bike and I'll ride to Granada. It's like 140k up to Granada, but it's also like it's flat for the first 40k because you're just riding along the coast, and then you suddenly go from like sea level up to 1,000 meters because you just go up. It's 140k with like 2,000 meters of climbing. I got there at 8 a.m., 9 a.m. or something, and David, the guy who organizes it, was there. And he like immediately saw me and came up and like gave me a hug and said, hi, it was so great to have you here. And then I just kept meeting more and more people whole morning. Yeah, like the people I knew from like Floatio were there, and like the Athletic Affair people, like Maya was there, and just like, oh, it's so nice to actually know people this year.
Yeah.
People I've known from like other gravel races had turned up, like Amity was there. It was so much nicer being there for a few days before the race this year, and opposed to last year where I turned up the day before the race after having them doing the same ride from Malaga. So I'd given myself an extra day to rest, which if that's personal growth, if anything.
I agree. You kind of need that rest day right before. That makes a big difference. You've shared so much about feeling the inspiration and the community support. How does it feel when you actually finish and you go home?
It was weird this time because last year I finished at 6 a.m. because the route was slightly shorter. It was like 750k. Like this year it was 40k longer, and there was also a lot more off-road this year. So it took me an extra 3 hours to do it this year, even though I think I was like faster paced. I was a stronger cyclist this year. So I finished at 6 a.m. last year, which was dark. And I think there were 2 people at the finish. I think David was at the finish, and somebody with an incredibly bright ring light who was like interviewing people at the finish, which was not great because like the last 10k of last year, all my bike lights had died apart from one like diddy little head torch I had. So I had to do the last 10k with like virtually zero visibility, which was not great because it's still quite a bit of off-road and then it's a long descent. So my eyes were like adjusted to pitch black at that point. And then I turn up at the finish line, somebody with this brightest ring light I've ever seen just comes up and starts interviewing me. So in the video, there's like an interview of me in the film where I am just like squinting and just cannot see a single thing. But again, there was like
you're probably sleep deprived. And...
Yeah. But again, there were like 2 people there. So it was, I mean, ultras are always like that, where you do the hardest thing you've ever done and you get to the finish line and there's like 2-3 people there.
Right.
And that's it. It's not like that.
It's kind of strange, right? Because you're in your own mind, you feel this accomplishment, a sense of self-worth of
so it's kind of like, it's always a bit anticlimactic. So
right.
You don't really think about that during the race. And then this year it was different. So there obviously not like crowds of people, but there were people there. Lena from Velocio, Maya was there. There was my brother who'd been filming. He came some film for a project of his that he wants to do. So he'd basically been hiding in bushes and flying drones to film me over the 2 days. So it was cool to actually finally see him, because I think I only caught him out the corner of my eye a few times during that race. So he was there, but he was still kind of like trying to keep back because he was trying to get footage. So he was there with a camera from a distance. So it was like kind of nice to see you, but I still pretend you're not there.
That congratulations, like run up and give me a hug.
Exactly.
So happy for you. Yeah.
Because there were so many other people as well. So like David was there, and like Amity had scratched from the race, I think, on the first morning, like the day after. I think she caught heat stroke, but she'd managed to ride somewhere and got a lift at the finish line. So she was there. So she came up and gave me a hug, and like she was also so nice because she offered me like her bed and a shower, which I really needed because I hadn't slept in like
that point,
3 days.
That probably seems like the best thing in the world.
It was so nice to like have good friends just like there at the finish line. I actually felt like there were people there for me this time, even though they were there for their own things and everything. But it felt nice to actually have people at the finish line, unlike last year where it was like I turned up, it was pitch black, there was nobody there, and I went and slept on a floor in a village hall.
Part of the ultra, you're doing that for yourself. It's your own journey.
Yes.
You said your brother was there. Are we going to see a documentary about your racing? Is that something coming up?
He wants to do like a 10-minute long. He's got quite a bit of footage. It's a project he wanted to do for sort of a outdoor film festival, and he kind of wanted to do it on me because like he's like obviously he knows about my cycling and knows about these adventure races and everything. So when I basically found out about Badlands, I was like, hey, do you want to do this? And so he ended up dropping a lot of things and flew down to Malaga and rented a car, and he brought a friend who knew how to fly a drone. When I'd been doing all my prep for the race, I'd also been sort of planning filming locations. So I'd be going, this bit looks really cool on camera, make sure you film here. Or like, that's going to take a while for me to get from there to there. So like, because I have no idea timing wise. It's like, okay, I don't know how fast I'm going to be this year or mechanicals or whatever, but like, you've got the dots, you can like follow me on the tracking. But during the race, like, I'm not going to be thinking about you. I don't care if I'm not at the right place at the right time. Yeah. Like he was saying there's like, oh, there's this really cool descent. Like if you get to there at like sunrise, that'll be amazing. It's like, no, if I'm not going to wait there for a sunrise shot, you can get a sunrise shot of some other cyclist coming down there. I don't care. I'm racing this. Yeah. You cannot say hi. If I'm crying by the side of the road, you can't offer me anything.
Right.
You need to film like a nature documentary. Like if I'm being eaten by a lion, you need to film from a distance because that'll be counted as support if you came and saved me.
Right. Even if you came over and offered me a Band-Aid or something.
Exactly. Just let the lion have me. The race is more important.
Well, do let us know when the film comes out. Would love to see it and share with everyone.
Some of the drone shots are incredible. So getting back to like real life, it was weird. So I went straight back to work. I flew back the next morning and was back at work the morning after that, basically. So I had no chill time. It was traveling and then back at work. And work, it was just like, yeah, they sort of said like, oh, congratulations. And I said like I'd won or something like that. But it was just that. It was like nobody really understood what the race was.
Yeah, they don't understand that aspect of it. I mean, you won't get that kind of recognition in that same way. Even if you share a story with them, it won't be the same connection.
They're the same people who'd be like absolutely mind blown that you'd cycled 40 miles or something. So if you said you'd cycled 500 miles, they're just going to be like, what? I don't even drive my car that far. Or something like that. But then there was a film. One of my friends runs this sort of film night they do occasionally where they do cycling related films and use it as like a charity fundraising for the people who do the trails in Ashton Court and Lee Woods, like a cycling charity basically that help people get into mountain biking and stuff. So there was a community cycling event on that evening. So I went there because I decided I know friends that are going to be there. I have some really good friends there. And I went there. And oh my God, that was just like incredible. Like the amount of people who came up and congratulated me and gave me hugs and gave me a shout out at the start, or that after having a day at work where just like it had not happened, to then go to this place where I had like, I don't know, like 50 people like congratulating me on the race, made up for everything. Like,
yeah, that's the champagne toast right there. Even if you don't get that when you finish the race, it's like sleeping in a comfortable bed after, and then finally just getting to go back to that community. It feels like everything's all worth it, right?
It is. Yeah. It was just sort of a great, these are my people, and this is where I got my support. And same with like the Friday morning ride I do with like a load of the girls in the city. We just go out and just do a 40k loop, and then we go to have a pastry and have a coffee before work. It's like one of my favorite things to do on a Friday morning. It just like sets me up the day.
Your life, you put so much into that, and it's impactful.
These people, they know me, they ride with me, they see how much I ride, they see how much I train. And so it's kind of nice. A lot of them I had spoken to about like how disappointed I was in like the start of my, I was struggling as well because I'd been unemployed for about 6 months up until June or something. So I'd struggled a lot with my mental health around that as well. So I was basically just focused on training at that point because that was kind of what was getting me through things.
It sometimes does help that, right? Doesn't that kind of help at least to have a focus on something? Especially with mental health, as long as you have some sort of outlet in that sense that kind of makes you feel better and there's some support there, it can make such a difference.
It was nice to like feel like it finally paid off. So they were so happy for me. And that groups I went to, they gave me a shout out, like the mountain biking one that I do. And it was like, oh, I love the city. I love the people in the city. And just to be able to do something like that. Yeah. So that's kind of how it felt. It was like, amazing finish, nothing at work, and then just like, no, I actually love it here.
Right. And that's what I got from just our conversation in the past. You love Bristol. You feel at home.
It is definitely the community that makes it. I mean, the cities itself is great, but it is the people here and the fact that it is a city where there's so many incredible cyclists who just want to do things and want to be so supportive. And just like this weekend, I'm going on a bunkhouse trip with a load of girls from the club where we're going up to the bunkhouse in Wales. It's going to be great. It's 100 miles up to like the middle of Wales. We booked a bunkhouse out for I think 16 or 20 of us. I went there on the Saturday, sort of rode over from Shrewsbury, had like a bit of a recce of the course, and then stayed in a nice B&B, but just like read a book and just had a nice chill thing. And then I did this race. It was okay. It was a short race. I think I came like 11th or something, but it was like a short, fast race that I just kind of wanted to do because it was local. And I was, okay, I've had my big sort of win of the season. I'm just going to enjoy this. I'm going to ride with some fun people.
This has been so much fun talking to you.
I really enjoyed talking to you too as well.
You're so easygoing and have such a wonderful outlook on everything. I did want to say thank you for joining us today so much. It's been such a joy and pleasure, and we truly appreciate your contribution to the ultra endurance cycling community. You're a major force to be reckoned with, a true inspiration, and we are going to continue to follow your path. We love that you do everything on your own terms. We congratulate you on all your success and your hard work. We recognize that. You're amazing.
Can't wait to see what's coming next.
If I'm in Girona at some point, I'll definitely have to say hi.
Please reach out.
I'm always looking for excuses to go to Girona. I do so many races in Spain. It's like, it's easy to get to, but it's just such a nice country. I'm definitely looking for more excuses to go back.
Well, I'm here, so just send me a message. Have a wonderful evening and a great weekend ahead.
Bye.
That's all for today's episode. We want to thank you, our listeners, for tuning in. Your support means everything to us. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with your friends. Feel free to share your thoughts and feedback. We love hearing from you.